So hello everybody, it's lovely to see you again. Thank you Kirsty and Bethan for coming back to join Pam and I following our last session on the Alzheimer's Society and sharing that information with the carers that Pam works with and other carers that are out there, isn't it, as part of our carers podcast project. So thank you both so much. So again, just some brief introductions. So welcome Pam Khan, who is the coordinator for the Carer Star project. And welcome Bethan Phelps, who is the Dementia Connect Services Manager for Cyntaf Morgannwg. And then to Kirsty Morgan, who's a Dementia Adviser. And both of you work for the Alzheimer's Society, isn't it?
Yeah.
So thank you and welcome back. And we invited you last time at the tail end of the last session for you to come back and just share some information about the lasting power of attorney. So Kirsty, are you happy just to maybe very briefly just to explain a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, of course. Lasting power of attorney is a documentation it is effectively that's put into place for I'll talk about it in the terms of dementia because that's part of my role. So if somebody's got a diagnosis of dementia, a lasting power of attorney can be put in place to enable an attorney to in their best interest. So there's two different types of lasting power of attorney. The first one is financial affairs. So that could be support with any management of somebody's finances. And then you've got a lasting power of attorney for health and welfare. So that's around making decisions then around any healthcare. So if somebody's in hospital, you know, when any decisions need to be made, if somebody needs to go into full-time care, you know, that's what that document is put in place for. There's different ways that you can obtain this documentation. You can do it through a solicitor. You can also download the paperwork yourself and complete the forms yourself. It just needs to be signed by a professional to say that the person has capacity. Or we have a lasting power of attorney digital assistant service that will support people to complete the paperwork over the telephone. So that can be with the person with dementia, with the carer or with the carer, as long as the person with dementia gives consent during the initial phone call for the carer to provide all the information that's required, then that's absolutely fine. So what happens, a referral is made to our helpline, or a call is made to our helpline requesting the service. And then one of our members of staff on the helpline then will arrange to call the person with dementia or the carer back. So they'd make an appointment over the telephone. Usually when I spoke to the helpline initially when this service started, the phone call usually takes around 30 to 45 minutes because I don't know if you've seen the paperwork for lasting power of attorney is quite an extensive form to be completed. So they will go through all the questions over the telephone, and what they will do then is send the paperwork to the person, but for the person to check to make sure all the information is correct and for it to be signed by a professional that say that person has capacity. The paperwork is then sent off to the Office of the Public Guardian, and there's a fee for the paperwork. I think it's £82 per document, which is payable to the Office of the Public Guardian for those paperwork to be registered. So they will go through all the paperwork, make sure everything's fine, and then obviously confirm that the person has the lasting power of attorney then. So there are, obviously we promote service, our lasting power of attorney digital assistance service, because it is a great service, because the paperwork is really daunting. If you've ever seen a lasting power of attorney document, it is quite lengthy, but people have the choice to decide which way they want to do it. I think it's just important that people are aware that there are different ways
Yeah.
doing it, and it's a lot to think about. We always encourage people to get it done sooner rather than later, because it needs to be done when the person has capacity to be able to make those decisions.
So it's an opportunity to plan ahead a little, Kirsty. So
Yeah, it is.
they've got measures in place.
Yeah, of course, and it's so important. And we understand when we are providing support to individuals, especially newly people who are newly diagnosed with dementia. There's lots and lots of things going on in that person's head, but it's just as important for us, I think, as dementia advisors, to ensure that they are aware, because some people are not aware that there is such documentation that could be put in place. But yeah, it's important for them to be done as soon as possible, because things can get much more complicated if a person doesn't have a lasting power of attorney in place.
So in terms of the lasting power of attorney and the process, on a day-to-day basis, once it's in place, what does that mean for the person?
A lasting power of attorney, with the financial affairs lasting power of attorney, a person, it can kick in, so to speak, whilst the person still has capacity.
Yeah.
So they can support with finances, paying bills, any banking.
And who would usually do that, Kirsty? Who would the person maybe have appointed to take on that role?
Typically is usually a close family member. In my experience, it's been a son, daughter, brother, sister, husband, wife.
Yeah.
That's that.
You can appoint more than one person as well, can't you?
Of course, yeah. And I think that's important too, because if you only appoint one person as an attorney, and that person loses capacity or passes away, then that lasting power of attorney is null and void, really. If there's more than one attorney named on the document, then obviously they will still be the attorney for that person then.
Yeah. And the role of that person then is to act in that person's best interests, to make decisions or support to make those decisions in the best interests of the individual.
Of course, yeah. With the health and welfare lasting power of attorney, that only when the person loses capacity, which is obviously different with the financial affairs lasting power of attorney. Obviously people can use that whilst they still have capacity, but with the health and welfare, it only comes into play when the person loses capacity to make decisions.
Okay, that's lovely. And Bethan, so this is a service that you provide throughout Cyntaf Morgannwg?
Yes. So our dementia advisors will be able to support anybody with any questions around lasting power of attorney. But as Kirsty mentions, our lasting power of attorney digital service is available across our organisation. Because it is just so important that people are aware of it. There's so many people who aren't aware that there's two different parts of lasting power of attorney, and the sooner somebody does it, whilst obviously they still have capacity, the better. Even to the extent that I'm, from a personal level, encouraging my parents to get it set up, ready, put me and my sister down as the attorneys, and then it's there ready. We don't have to worry about it. It's such a, as you said, such a positive way to plan ahead.
Absolutely, it's so important, isn't it? But I think quite often with these things, many of us maybe sort of delay and you know, that maybe aren't as proactive as we could be in terms of putting some of these measures in place, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's one of those conversations that people may find difficult to have, especially with family members. Like Bethan have said, I've spoken to my mum and dad, and they've said, "Oh no, we find there's nothing wrong. Yeah, that's okay at the moment, but let's think about the future, you know." And I think for me as a dementia advisor, it may be easier for a person to have a conversation with me initially rather than husband, wife, brother, sister, because it's not a subject that anybody wants to talk about. You know, if somebody's just given a diagnosis of dementia, they're dealing with that diagnosis, all the emotions that come with it. Then asking somebody about making a decision for lasting power of attorney for when they lose capacity, you know, it's really difficult. It's really difficult for people. But I think for me, it's just making them aware of how important it is and what can happen if something's not in place, you know.
But I think, you know, if it isn't put in place and somebody does lose capacity, you know, there are ways to work through an issue. Like deputyship is something that can be put into place. So it's, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it's so much more difficult and costly to go down the deputyship route than the lasting power of attorney route.
So that's good to know, isn't it? That's good for all of us to know. And Pam, I know that you work with carers who have asked you about this process and how they can go about it.
That's right. I get many carers. It's one of the first things, you know, a carer would think of, you know, because they worry about the financial side, making decisions and having the cared for, you know, their best interest at heart, really. And having two or even, can you have 3 people?
Yeah.
Yes. You know, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Because as you say, that person could become ill themselves, and you know, it just makes sense having 2 or 3 people to sort of be in that position, really, to help the cared for, isn't it? You know, so it does make sense to do it as soon as you can, because it's so important, and having maybe 2 or 3 people that could possibly be that ones to take that on, you know.
Yeah,
definitely.
So if anybody's listening, Bethan and Kirsty, and who are interested in getting more information about the lasting power of attorney and the process and the support and help that they can get, can they get in touch with you?
of course.
Yeah, absolutely. They can contact our Dementia Connect line. They will put them in contact with the right people, or we'll share our details as well so we can make contact, and a Dementia Adviser will be in touch to support further.
Okay, that's lovely. So thank you both so much, and thank you, Pam, as well, for another interesting and informative session. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch up with you soon, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Used to run them twice a year, but we have started running them over Zoom now, which is fantastic for carers to still have access to this course. We are running them at different times as well, whereas we were quite restricted with the face-to-face services, where we're in the middle of planning future CRISP sessions, because there's one running at the moment, for afternoon session, an evening session, a weekend session, just so we can reach all carers, you know, because more often than not, we'd invite carers to the course and they'd say, oh, I can't, I'm working, you know, or because of caring responsibilities, excuse me, the time of the course wasn't really appropriate for them. So I think it's fantastic that we've got an opportunity now to be able to reach more carers. As part of the CRISP course, it is specifically for carers of people affected by dementia. And the kind of things that we cover in the course is understanding dementia. So we look at what dementia is, different types of dementia, common symptoms or difficulties somebody may face with a diagnosis of dementia. So they the first 2 sessions really we'll go through that. The third session then is finance and legal matters, where we will look at different things like benefits that they may be entitled to, advanced statements, that's the word I was looking for, and lasting power of attorney. So those kind of things we look at in session 3. And session 4 then is carer specific. So it's about carers coping day to day, you know, and the importance of them looking after themselves. So it is a really good course, and I think the feedback that I've received from delivering the courses is that maybe it's not so much about the information that we provide, because there's lots of information that is available on dementia, you know. We've got a wide range of fact sheets that are really useful and easy for people to read and understand. So maybe not so much the information, but just being in an environment where they can speak to other carers, somebody that's going through something that they are going through, somebody who understands, you know, and you can see the relief sometimes on some of the carers' faces when they say, oh, so it wasn't just me, you know, I've experienced that. Or just passing over tips. Well, you know, I tried this worked, this didn't work so well, but maybe it's worth giving this a go, because at the end of the day, everybody's an individual. You know, we can say, yes, this is Alzheimer's disease, these are the symptoms you're going to experience, because there are common symptoms, but everybody is different. You know, what works for one person may not necessarily work for another person. So it's a bit of trial and error, you know, finding things that work. And I think that's what the group is really great for, you know, for people to have that opportunity to say, well, this worked, this didn't, you know, just to have those conversations. So I personally think is a really good course for carers to attend, and hopefully.
It sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Because as you say, sharing their stories and their journey, that we underestimate how important that is and how much it helps an individual, isn't it, you know?
Definitely.
When a person first gets that diagnosis is scary, because, you know, perhaps they've never come across it before with anyone else. So having that sort of service is fantastic, you know. The help must be, you know, phenomenal for people, isn't it, you know?
Yeah. It does sound like an amazing programme. And again, if carers are interested in accessing that course, then you know, we'll include the contact details with this podcast so that they can get in touch with you, Kirsty and Bethan.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, great.
And Kirsty, you referenced, you said that you've got lots of information that's available that people can easily access. Does that mean that information is available online as well?
Yes, there's if you go onto our website, or you can put into Google Alzheimer's Society fact sheets, there's lots of information. It can be a bit overwhelming, you know, to see the amount of information that we do have, but I think we've been really good at sort of separating things out. So we've got fact sheets for specific things. So, for instance, somebody was having issues with eating and drinking, there's a fact sheet specifically for eating and drinking. Or if it's changes in behaviour, there's a fact sheet that lists some of the common behaviours and ways that carers can support the person that's displaying those behaviours, you know. Yeah, so if I always just type in Alzheimer's Society fact sheets and the publications list come up then, and you can just have a look at what's applicable.
So that's good for people to know as well, isn't it? That information is really easy to access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great. I think we've covered quite a lot in this session, and it would be great, Bethan and Kirsty, if you would come back and do another session with us about the lasting power of attorney, because I know that that's something that's of interest to a good few people, and sometimes it can be a complex thing for people to understand as well. So if you were happy to come back and do another one of these sessions with us next time round around that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, that's lovely. So thank you all so much. And yes, let's have a good rest of the day, and we look forward to seeing you next time, Kirsty and Bethan.
Lovely,
Thank you.
both.
Okay, then take care.
Bye.
And you.